Welcome to Ducks on the Pod, a baseball podcast with your hosts, Matt Welker and Jake Mosley. Welcome back, everybody, to Ducks on the Pod. Today we are doing the NL West, the second to last division of this wonderful league that we like to call Major League Baseball. Probably one of the more exciting ones in the league this year just because of the Dodgers basically buying themselves a championship this year. But it's baseball. Anything can happen. My name's Matt. I don't think I've said that yet. That's Jake. How's it going today, Jake?
Pretty good, right? Getting another one. I know divisional wrap-ups are coming to an end here, but I've enjoyed them so far. They're fun to make, fun to kind of get caught up to speed before the season gets started. So yeah, happy to dive into the NL West here.
Nice little practice for us, too, to talk about something we know a little bit more about than just sitting here just shooting the shit about spring training, and we get better practice this way.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So our fifth of six divisions, NL West. Let us get started. So for the Colorado Rockies, key departures. I actually don't really have any on the hitting side, because they had two guys contracts run out. One they re-signed. That's Jacob Stallings, and Brendan Rodgers is the other one, who signed a minor league deal with the Astros. So key departures with the bats, not really any key adds with the bats. I'd like to say three. Potentially the crowd would only say two, but I'll let you talk about the third.
I know where that's headed.
First off, Thairo Estrada. He'll be coming in to play second, batting fifth, taking Brendan Rodgers' spot. Adding one of the more ultimate utility guys in Kyle Farmer, who, if you didn't know this, Jake, was a catcher at one point. And then number three, big old Keston Hiura.
You bet.
Projected to be in the minors to start the year. I don't know if you had a spring training update for the guy or not.
I always have an update on Keston Hiura. It's not going well. My value addition of the offseason across MLB, after the numbers he put up, especially last year in AAA, it's not off to a hot start. He's kind of an outside chance to make the opening day roster anyways, so that's okay. Kind of right where we were expecting to be. Just kind of still going to keep my eye on him. I'm not giving up hope yet. Right now he's hitting 214 with.
Oh, that's better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, his OPS is like kind of all right, like for hitting 214. He only has one RBI, 3 hits, so just not performing at this point, but also it's sporadic at bats, small sample size of spring training. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the MLB at some point this year, but I digress. So we can move on to the rest of the team.
Deal. So going from start to finish of their normal right-handed lineup, you got Brenton Doyle out in center, Ryan McMahon at third, Ezekiel Tovar, who is probably the most exciting guy in this team. Maybe you could argue Brenton Doyle, but he's playing shortstop. You got your boy Chris Bryan at DH, Thairo Estrada, as we talked about already, at second, Michael Toglia at first, Nolan Jones in left, Jordan Beck in right, and Jacob Stallings behind the dish. And then for bench, you got Hunter Goodman as a utility guy, Kyle Farmer. It's listed as utility or infield, but he can kind of play anywhere too. And then Sean Bouchard and Sam Hilliard as all the backups. So this is another team too where there's a lot of Colorados listed as original signing info, which could be good, could be bad. Because if they do have a strength, it's their hitting. Because they do have some really good bats in their lineup, especially like 4 out of the top 5. Chris Bryant could be good. I don't know if he still has anything left in the tank, but like he's only 33. It's not like he's too old to play anymore. It's not like he's getting up near 40. Um, but yeah, I was just kind of alluding to. I don't hate this lineup by any means, especially the Doyle, McMahon, Tovar, three-headed monster there. All three ranked within the top 100. Their WARs last year, I don't give me a second. Yeah, two of them had a 3.7, the other had a 1.9. Like that's very good to have out of your top three. And then projected, they're pretty much all either projected to be about the same, if not more, this upcoming season. You got anything to add
Yeah.
on?
So obviously they've been in the dumps the last couple of years. The team hasn't been very good. For some reason, they always have a stud young shortstop.
Yeah.
I think Ezekiel Tovar fits that. He's slated to hit third in their lineup. Performed really well last year with the 3.7 WAR, as you mentioned. So kind of look forward to his continued progression and improvement. Brenton Doyle's really, really good too. So they definitely have some pieces here. I think Nolan Jones at least has all the physical tools, kind of goes in and out of performing well. And then Jordan Beck as well, kind of another young outfielder, hits pretty well, at least in his limited time in the minor leagues. It's roughly a year in the minors. It's 194 games with a 284 average. He's hit 36 home runs over that 194 games as well. So definitely some tools that could definitely help out this lineup that kind of needs it. As you mentioned, this is the strength of their team. I think they only have 4 or 5 reliable good pieces. I say reliable because you have Chris Bryant in there, who has shown obviously that he could be an MVP level. That was a long time ago at this point. He's really just kind of crushed them, both on the books and on the field. He just can't stay healthy. He's set to make $27 million this year. He's really in the middle of this contract. So far in Colorado, he's only amassed 159 games over 3 years. So one total season. Obviously, that doesn't cut it. He's healthy now. We'll kind of see what that turns into. But I just have concerns over his health. He's already come out, said he has lower back strain. That's kind of a disc issue. That's
this spring training he has?
Just in the past, as he's been rehabbing these previous injuries. He mentioned that he has back issues that he expects to be with him for the remainder of his career, which obviously is very worrisome. That is just a chronic back issue that zaps power. Obviously, anybody who's had back issues knows that that's a difficult thing to just manage and deal with, and really feel good about your physical capabilities. So he's only hitting 250 in Colorado, which is very, very low considering he was a 280 hitter before he got there. And on top of that, Colorado has all the space in the world in that outfield to hit 250. You would think it would be much lower at other ballparks. So hope the health is good this year. He's really exciting to watch when he's on the field, but he's obviously going to be a key part of this offense when healthy, and when he's not, they don't really have the pieces to pick up the lack of production there.
Yeah. No, this team is interesting. It's like you were hitting on Jordan Beck. The guy spent 153 service time days in the league last year. That could be split within the last 2 years. I'm not 100% certain on that. But he had 184 plate appearances last year and had a 32 weighted runs created plus.
Yeah, it didn't go well last year.
Looking at that, Jacob Stallings somehow, just based on Jacob Stallings' career, was the only person in this lineup that had above 100 on that. So maybe these guys, so this is weighted, so it does account for the ballpark. That might have a factor into this, that they're graded lower just because they're at a bigger ballpark. So their actual stats are inflated because half of their games are being played at high altitude. But yeah, I mean, we call this a strength. They're not that good on offense, but if you had to pick a strength, it's definitely their offense. I don't have much else to say for the hitters. I don't know if you've got anything else.
I don't either. They're young. You mentioned there weren't many key adds or key departures that are super significant. So it's all about taking the team they had last year, a bunch of these young guys, just continuing to improve. So I'm good to move on to the pitchers if you want.
Yeah. Like Tyler Estrada is probably, I mean, that's a good ad. It's just, he's probably not hitting fifth on any other team.
No.
He probably would on the White Sox, but we don't need to keep dragging
No.
them through the dirt. As far as pitching goes, their rotation is not very good. With German Marquez, Ryan Feltner, Kyle Freeland, the sole lefty in this rotation, Antonio Senzatela, and Bradley Baylock, who is still listed as a prospect. It looks like he was originally drafted by Boston. But this is not the greatest rotation. Feltner was fine last year.
Yeah, he was good. He had a 2.4 WAR, ERA under 4.5 when pitching in Colorado. I would say that's pretty good. The rest of this starting staff, though, is booty cheeks.
Booty cheeks, indeed. You know, it's also booty cheeks is their bullpen.
Yeah.
Not really a single name in this that I only know of Jimmy Herget because he once played for the Reds. My brain's trying to tell me I know who Jake Bird is, but I don't think I do. The rest of them I don't. Like, I don't. To be honest, I don't know who Tyler Kinley is either. And he's slated to be their closer. Maybe I just am skipping over somebody, and I actually do know him, but I don't, and I don't know.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned like on the offensive side of the ball, their hitters, they do have homegrown prospects. Their pitching staff, not so much. And I feel like for the Rockies
bullpen,
to ever
you
succeed,
don't usually see that. But.
No, I agree with that. But understanding you're the Rockies and you play at Coors Field, it's not the most attractive destination for free agents. So you end up kind of being where they are here with getting a guy like Scott Alexander, who's going on 36 and just kind of clinging on to a career instead of getting guys in their prime who can actually help. So I think them more than any other team, like you have to develop pitching like throughout your farms because those are the guys that you can guarantee are on your team instead of going out and trying to spend money. Like your offense has to be so good, and you have to have like World Series aspirations for anybody in their prime to be like, yeah, I will mortgage potentially my future and next contract to go pitch in Coors Field. Like that is a huge difference that I don't think people always talk about Coors Field and the effect that it has on hitters. I don't think talking about the free agent market and the pitchers really gets talked about a whole lot. So just wanted to mention that.
We did also forget to mention they do have another starter that's currently hurt. He's listed as shoulder soreness, which just dates back to a week ago. That is Austin Gomber. He's another lefty. So they do have two lefties in that rotation. I would assume that means Bradley Blaylock falls out. Or maybe Senzatella, since maybe they want to keep a young guy in there. I don't know. But I do feel like we should have mentioned him. And there's another injured reliever, but he actually just had to get Tommy John. So not even worth pointing out right now because we're not even going to talk about him or hear his name until next year.
Yeah.
So there's only two other topics. So the first one is Keys prospects. They do actually have two in the top 30 of all of MLB. So at 25, they have Chase Dolander. He's a right-handed pitcher. They gave his ETA as this year, so maybe he can come up and help bolster this kind of weak rotation. But I mean, honestly, that couldn't be. It could end up being not a horrible rotation if Gomber comes back and then Chase Dolander comes up and does what he's expected to do. Still, it's not great to start, at least not for opening day. But then they also have Charlie Condon, who is number 29th overall. He's a 6'6", listed as outfield third base, not supposed to come up until next year. But that if he comes up and does what he's supposed to do, that could make their lineup a lot more fun. That would also put probably their six draft picks or international free agents in their starting lineup, which we love on this pod.
We sure do. That's how you get a tip of the cap. I'm really hoping that the Rockies didn't already break Charlie Condon. Guy had 37 home runs for Georgia in college. And then in high A ball, his first professional experience, he hit one home run and batted 180. So professional career, it's 25 games, 109 plate appearances. So, yeah, obviously it's not a big sample size, but like OPS at 518, like the production wasn't there last year. So it's the Rockies. I'm not saying it like he's toast by any means. Like, obviously I still expect him to be very, very good. He's got tons of power and easily can run into a cold spell. But I saw that surface the other day of he had one home run in his early professional career, and the stats are across the board ugly. 4 walks to 34 Ks in 25 games. Like, let's get the train back on the tracks here.
Yeah, I mean, there are different things, obviously, from college to pros, but like,
I say that more jokingly. Like, obviously, we're not looking into that small of a sample size, but yeah.
Yeah, I would also think that you said he was in high A, right?
Yeah.
I would think that, I mean, the SEC is pretty damn good at baseball. I would at least think that the pitchers he is facing there are of high A quality.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm sure there are still some. He probably faced some very good prospects that were quickly getting through high A, but it's like
there's not that many guys who have
that would transfer
target
to
on your back either in high A, and Charlie Condon certainly would be one of them. You don't want to get got as a pitcher right off the bat to a guy who just hit 37 home runs in college that year.
Yeah. Then the only other topic I wanted to bring up, which I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but Jeffrey Yan, what an electric reliever. For those of you listening and watching, because I don't think I can throw a video on here, he's the guy that's striking people out and then just jumping up and then landing and doing the splits. Like, this guy's just a psychopath. Maybe for the first like actual pod that's not a divisional preview, maybe I'll dive into him and be like, who the hell is this guy and why is he just now showing up?
For a second, I thought you were going down the route that you were going to dive into the splits. Like, you'd have to stretch for years to get to be able to do that.
Yeah, I could be pretty close.
Okay,
give me a couple months and I'll be fine. But yeah, so he's 28. He's a lefty reliever. I don't think he throws that hard. I could very well be wrong. I've only watched the one game that they played the Reds, and I don't think he pitched. But he was in Japan last year. So that's also kind of why I want to look him up to see if he like went to Japan, figured some stuff out, and then came back and is electric, or if it's just like he just kind of got slightly better and it's enough to potentially make the team. He still is listed as a non-roster invite. But I mean, even just to potentially cause some excitement, I would consider putting him in the big league squad. I mean, you're in the division with the Dodgers and the Padres and DBacks and Giants. Like, all four of them are good.
I mean, the guy is electric. Like, he can strike people out, and he's got the dance moves to go with it. And it seems like he comes from a good, authentic place too. So all for it.
I don't think he's doing it like douchey.
Yeah, I'd rather guys build out a personality and a brand that way than just being like cocky, arrogant, all this swag that like these like kids in T-ball are wearing now with chains and sliding gloves and all that kind of BS. Like, I'm good without that. Go be your authentic self. And he's certainly doing that.
Yeah, he didn't have a very good season. At a very quick research into him in Japan. He had a 5.58 ERA across 30 innings. So ERA is tough to look at for bullpen.
Bring him up.
But yeah, guy's electric. All right, I am done with the Rockies. If you were also done.
Yeah, let's move on.
Oh, I actually didn't say their key departures for pitching, but we're kind of already past them. It's just 2 starters that ate up a lot of their innings last year. But yeah, it's not that important to go back to. All right, so the San Francisco Gigantes Key departures on the hitting side, which is funny. Well, actually, the vast majority of their key departures went to other teams in their division. But Michael Conforto, Mark Canha, my dude, Tyler Estrada, who we just talked about with the Rockies. And that's it for hitters. But then key adds, they did add Reds killer Willie Adames to play shortstop for them this year.
So unnecessary to throw in the Reds there.
I am who I am. Why don't you start off going down their lineup here, add some commentary.
Yeah, so returning pretty much the same lineup for the most part. Obviously, the huge addition of Willie Adames. They had a need at shortstop. They clearly took care of that. Willie Adames is very good at baseball. That being said, I'm not sure San Francisco is the place for Willie Adames. It's not very right-handed power bat friendly, and Willie Adames certainly can hit home runs. He'll hit plenty this year, but I'm not sure the park and the situation play up to him to really get the most out of him. So good for him, signed a huge deal, all that good stuff. Good for the team. They definitely made an improvement there. I just expect Willie Adames from a number standpoint to take a pretty significant step back. We'll see if that comes to fruition. The rest of this lineup, it's a lot of guys who are good, solid, not a whole lot of star power. So we'll see kind of if they can replicate what they did last year and be a really, really good offense. They had everybody, well, they had 6 of their 9 projected starters now with a WRC plus over 100. So this lineup is legit. I don't think a lot of people would understand that because of the park kind of killing power. But yeah, it's an interesting lineup. A lot of the same guys. I think Tyler Fitzgerald's really, really good. He's actually he had the highest WRC plus of anybody projected in their starting lineup last year. OPS of 831. So very good. The only issue I see with these hitters is they do strike out quite a bit. So everybody on their team is over the 20% K rate, with exception to Jung-Ho Lee, who's all the way down at 8.2. So let's just put the ball in play, guys. Then they'll be good again, I think.
I love Jung-Ho Lee. It seems like that team loves him too. I forget what somebody had a nickname for him the other day, and I can't think of what it was, but it seemed fitting, and it just kind of made you smile. But yeah, this is another team that has a decent amount of their own prospects. I really like Patrick Bailey, the switch hitting catcher. I think he didn't have, if I remember correctly, he had a pretty good year last year as far as WAR goes. As far as hitting, not as much. Yeah, he had an 81 weighted run created plus, but still had a 4.7 WAR. I know the position of catcher definitely adds a lot to WAR. But no, I like this team up and down. It sucks for them because they're in a good division, and they're, I think, easily the 4th best team in this division. Like, I don't think they even, I wouldn't say they don't come close to the Padres and Diamondbacks, which Padres feel like they're on the way down, but they're still pretty damn good right now. I almost just spoiled a signing that they had. But yeah, I mean, their bench isn't great. The nice thing about this team, they do have a couple of guys that have been in the league for quite a bit to help just kind of solidify all these new young guys, because they've got Jung-Hoo Lee's got 1 season, Heliot Ramos has 1 season and like 2/3, Tyler Fitzgerald 1 season, Patrick Bailey 1 and 2/3, and then 3 of the guys on their bench are all in the same boat. They're a pretty young team as far as service time goes. So that'll be good to have those vets, and Wilmer Flores on the bench. They got good vets to help teach some of these young guys and get them going. Now they do have a key prospect that he's not supposed to come up this year. It looks like he's supposed to be coming up next year. His name is Bryce Eldridge. He's a first baseman that's 6'7", and he's a lefty. That guy's going to be putting balls in the water left and right, I feel like. In Oracle, jeez.
It's a new one. They changed it a couple years ago. So
yeah,
you get a little forgiveness there.
Yeah. Well, I almost said Oriole Park because obviously that's the Orioles, but Oracle. Yeah. So I'm good on this team, or at least on the hitting portion.
Yeah, I'm good there too. Actually,
All right, cool.
Patrick Bailey, one of the best defensive catchers. I know it's one of our things on this pod that we don't believe in defense a whole lot, but catching is one of those premier defensive positions. Guys awesome behind the plate. Yeah.
Yes.
Especially when usually teams rely on like a savvy vet guy to be their good defensive catcher who they can throw out there with their ace or something.
Not a guy that hasn't even hit arbitration yet and still has one more season before he does that.
Right. That's a huge advantage just over the rest of the league at one of your 9 positions. So.
Yeah. And then still putting up pretty solid offensive numbers as well. All right. Yeah. So moving on to pitchers then. They've got 2 pretty big key departures. Blake Snell being the first one. Yeah, he is who he is. Very good pitcher. They're going to miss him a lot, which they did kind of try to replace him, but in a weird way. And then they also traded away Taylor Rogers, who is one of their premier backup guy or back of the bullpen guys. We won't mention the team that he got traded to, but so the key ad that they had is who I mentioned to try to replace Blake Snell, and that is 42-year-old Justin Verlander with 19 years and 2 days of service time. Yeah, so I really like their rotation. That's like this is like Verlander's pitching in the second hole, but like I would venture to say he probably could be the worst of the 5.
Yeah, he could also be the best.
Yeah, like I don't know what we're gonna get out of him. Like you got Robbie Ray, Jordan Hicks, who throws 200 miles an hour, and then Kyle Harrison with Logan Webb to lead it all off. Like that's quite the rotation.
Yeah, solid top to bottom. Justin Verlander just has defied Father Time over and over and over again. He's looking good again this spring. Something about it. I don't know if Kate Upton's keeping him young or what, but the guy is just incredible and an incredible career, and he's shown no signs of slowing down. So top to bottom, great rotation. That's a good ad, especially with the void of Blake Snell.
I'm glad you said her name because I would have said Kate Middleton on accident. But that girl's like a queen. But even their bullpen's really good, which it's kind of contradictory to what we just said about the Rockies as well. They've got 6 homegrown guys. Maybe they made some stops in between there, but they've got 6 guys drafted by the Giants in their bullpen, which is always very fun to see. With Taylor Rogers' twin brother, I think they're twins, Tyler Rogers, the submariner, who literally moves the earth as he's throwing the ball. But what's the nice thing about it is that, like, yeah, they've got Ryan Walker to close out, but they've also got guys like Tyler Rogers who can close out, Camilo Duvall, Eric Miller could probably get some saves in there, but they've got a really good back end of their bullpen, and they power rank well as well.
Yeah, my only concern with your pen is they have one lefty projected to make the opening day roster right now, and that's Eric Miller. I know times have changed a little bit over the last couple of years with the 3-batter minimum, but Eric Miller isn't. I mean, he's good. He's not one of their top 3 bullpen arms, though. So there's a lot of pressure on him to hold up to what he's performed at so far in his career. Short career, 1 year of service time, but I don't know how much depth they have in the minor leagues. I didn't go that deep on it. Bullpen guys are bullpen guys, in my opinion. Yeah. So it's kind of a crapshoot to a degree. And certainly some of these right-handers can get lefties out. But just a cause for concern if you're looking to poke a hole in this pitching staff as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the vast majority of their pitching prospects are all. I mean, a pitching prospect's probably always going to be listed as a starter, but if they tend to have stamina issues, they don't. But yeah, they've only got a couple guys that are listed for reliever in their top 30. But other than that, there's not a whole lot behind that.
Well, it's interesting with the park too. I'm a big park guy, and I know this doesn't translate into a whole lot of like difference in wins and losses throughout the year. But if you have a lot of righties on your staff, in this case, we're talking bullpen, that means all switch hitters are going to hit lefty. And you think of that park and left-handed hitters, there's a short porch and right? Even the big wall, kind of like Green Monster, where it might take away a couple of home runs that are line drives, but it's hitting off a solid brick wall. Like chaos happens. The ball can bounce anywhere. But you have it short down the line, and then forever deep in right center, which is a triples alley. So there's like, if you want to hit it to a certain portion of the park there to really, have some OPS opportunities, it's right field. And with a bunch of righties, you are begging the other team to throw out as many lefties as they have.
Yeah. The nice thing, though, is that all these guys are like Taylor Rogers is the lowest K per 9 rate, and it's at 6.3. It's like he's not averaging 1 K per basically inning pitched. But all these other guys are. And like some of them are up in the 11s, high 10s. Like,
yeah,
thankfully they've at least got some strikeout guys in there to where it's hopefully the opposing batters don't even have the chance to hit the ball.
Yeah, and I know you agree with me here. It's more important to have quality arms down there than necessarily playing matchups, especially with that 3-batter minimum. They can do that. I'm not too concerned about the bullpen as a whole. It's just certain matchups they might find themselves in a tough spot here and there for an at-bat, and we'll see how that at-bat goes.
Yeah. I'm ready to move on if you are.
Yep, let's roll.
All righty. So moving on to your 2024 third place team, that is the Arizona Diamondbacks. What are you chuckling about?
Just your lead-ins. Funny.
All right.
I like them. Keep going.
I guess I'll just be boring from here on out. No, well, you did. Anyway, so key departures from the hitting side, they've got 4, which they all have been. Well, I guess one was only there for I think 1 year. But Christian Walker, big loss. That sucks for them. They did do something to replace him. But yeah, Christian Walker went to the Astros, which I believe he's already hurt and expected to miss some time. But they also lost Jock Peterson, who seems that he's just switching teams every year. But I've heard he's I know the stereotypical big clubhouse guy, but like he takes things very seriously, and like there's a reason that all the teams he goes to every year end up making the playoffs. So yes, he's joining good teams, but it's not like
he's a big part of those teams.
It's not like he's a huge part of those teams, and even if
off the field.
Yeah, even if he platoons, because I'm pretty sure he only hits versus one side of the mound, but
righties. There's no chance he's a lefty.
Oh, I'm so bad at remembering who's a righty lefty. I knew he was a lefty. I just I don't want to miss.
You were hedging your bet.
I sure was. But then they also lost Josh Bell, who wasn't there for very long. But then I also listed Kevin Newman as a loss. Guy's a very good lefty hitter, which I think he actually ended up playing a lot last year.
Well, they had some injuries, especially at shortstop. So
yeah,
Perdomo was out a while, and then Blaze Alexander got hurt as well.
Yeah, which I believe he's still hurt. But then their key adds on the hitting side, they brought in Josh Naylor with the trade with the Guardians. Yeah. And then they also re-signed Randall Grichuk, who I always like to kind of add re-signs as key adds. Just he's not a starter in their team, but he's probably number 1 off the bench. I guess Alec Thomas probably is, but
he's a platoon guy.
I mean, Yeah, going down their lineup though, this top three, even though I'm not particularly a huge Josh Naylor fan, I can't deny stats. Um, this top three is fantastic. You can even include Gurriel Jr. in there to make it a top four is fantastic. With Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, who's arguably one of my favorite players in the entire league. And I'd love to plant this flag and say that I've been loving him for a very long time, but it's my first time saying it in a public space, so choose to
I'll
believe me or
back you
not.
up.
All right,
I'll
thank
back
you.
you
I
up on
appreciate
that.
it. Yeah. I remember when Trey Turner was still back with the Nationals and it was pretty impending that they were going to be trading him. I was saying, go get him or go get Ketel Marte. I'd love to have both of those guys. And I believe Whit Merrifield was also thrown in there. But no, this top three is great. You got speedy as hell Corbin Carroll, who had a wild year last year. Ketel Marte, who put up like questionably, arguably MVP numbers. Josh Naylor, who's just an absolute fucking psychopath, but also a good baseball player. Which he can kind of pick it at first too. I appreciate a good first baseman that will just stop any ball that's thrown his way. I don't necessarily care as much about your glove, but being able to pick is huge. Like that's one of my top things as far as things I actually care about in fielding. Because if you fuck up that pick, like the guy that threw the ball, he's going to be in his head a little bit, and then also the guy that missed the pick, he's going to be in his head a little bit, and it's like you now have two guys kind of in their head versus one.
It's usually a
But the
two-base
rest of the
error
lineup
too,
here, yeah,
because
um,
assuming the guy would have been thrown out at first on a ground ball, and
yeah,
a lot of balls go out of play that aren't picked. Like that has got to be one of the most impactful defensive situations that you have. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that's one of the more important defensive aspects. I could care less about like
yeah,
range for the most part or having a plus arm. Like there's ways around some of that stuff, especially with the analytics and positioning. But yeah, picking the ball, that's just like a mano-a-mano situation, and it's worth
yeah.
two bases usually.
In a lot of situations too, like let's say a third baseman has to go pretty deep into the hole over the foul line to get a ball. Most of the times, you're taught not to even try to make it on the fly. You're taught to just get it out as fast as you can in that direction. So the ball's going to be bouncing, and you got to trust your first baseman at that point to be able to get the ball and secure the out. So like the ability to pick is so underrated in the game of baseball, and I love it. I'm probably going to talk about it a lot more. But going through the rest of the lineup, you got Jake McCarthy in center, Eugenio Suarez at third base, Pavin Smith at DH, Gabby Moreno, who's also one of the better catchers in the league. Guy guns people down at second all the time, so much so that people tend to not even attempt to steal on him. And then one of the more boring shortstops in the entire league, Gerardo Perdomo at shortstop. Just kidding. He had a good year last year. With Jordan Lawler waiting in the wings, I don't really understand why they just signed him to a big deal. But yeah, and then they've also got two guys on the bench that I particularly do like, Grant Okrichik and Alec Thomas. And I don't know a whole lot about their backup catcher and Jose Herrera or infielder Greg Kissinger, which I believe they like literally just traded from the Astros like a couple days ago. Yeah, as far as prospects, I already mentioned the guy's name, Jordan Lawler. He's a shortstop. He's currently number 11 in the MLB. I expect him to be up at any point this season. Like I would think that you're gonna want to get him up and going as fast as possible. But Gerardo Perdomo is also a great defensive shortstop, so they don't really need to rush Lawler. But yeah, he's an exciting one too. He's a name to remember for the next couple of years. Only has 25 days of service time, but he, from the small amount that I've seen, he looks to be like he's going to be very good.
Agree. He can rake.
Yes. Do you have anything else to add for hitters?
Yeah, I like this lineup. I think they're good. They replaced what they needed to over the offseason in that Christian Walker departure. What's crazy is last year, every single person in their starting projected lineup, WRC plus of over 100. So this team can mash. And then Randall Grichuk. No, not in 2024. Are you looking at Gerardo?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, you're looking
I've
at
got
projections.
The projections up.
But yeah,
my bad.
Yeah. So all of them were over 100 in WRC plus last year. And then Randall Grichuk, who's the bench piece that will be in the starting lineup quite often, he was at a 139. So they don't have a weak spot in this lineup, really. And another thing that I love about the lineup as a whole is everybody is below a 20% K rate. So they do put the ball in play. It's a pretty big field. The only person who's above that 20% threshold is Suarez, which isn't really concerning. But
don't miss my boy.
No, I was coming back to him. I don't want to be too mean on him. I've just jokingly been hating on him for a while.
Great clubhouse
guy. Such a big Reds guy. But he clearly has power to offset his higher strikeout rate. And he's the perfect guy to throw in the middle of a lineup that there's constantly guys on base. You need somebody to hit the ball out of the yard. He's that guy.
Yeah. So I completely forgot that Ketel Marte didn't originate with them.
Yeah. Seattle back in the Robinson Cano days.
Seattle, but they traded Marte and Taijuan Walker for Gene Segura, Mitch Haniger, and Zach Curtis.
Yeah, he's a big part of that. But, he's always been projected to be a very, very good
I think at the
MLB
time
player.
That was probably a pretty fair trade.
I agree. He, I think, has a lot more power than he was ever projected to. He also got caught on PEDs once, so
I do remember that.
Take that for what it's worth, but he's a really good player.
It's fun to just see that he's continuously like getting better, even at 31 and a half.
Yeah.
But then you see guys like Chris Bryant. I mean, they're different positions. I get it. But you see guys like Chris Bryant, who's only like a year or two older than him, but he's just constantly hurt. He just doesn't look comfortable on the field. Yeah.
He might have actually fallen off a cliff. Maybe that's why he's hurt.
Maybe. But we don't tend to make speculations on this here podcast.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Shout out Padres. As far as departures and ads in the pitching realm of things, I didn't put anything down as key departures, but key ads is a big one. Corbin Burns, their new ace, which Zach Gallen himself was an ace. But now they've got a second one in there. So you got Corbin Burns, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, who I feel like at some point I need to make an official apology on him, but we'll move on for that for now. We'll table that. Eduardo Rodriguez, who I believe missed the vast majority of the season last year, if not the entire season. He started 10 games, never mind. But he's a lefty. He's the one lefty in their starting rotation, kind of. But then also Brandon Pfaadt, who was very good last year, who is currently power ranked just right behind Zach Gallen. So like he could very well be seen as that third top dog there.
He's semi-local, by the way.
And we don't normally – huh?
He's from Louisville. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't think I did know that.
Yeah.
But we don't normally – Trinity. Anyway – we don't normally point out the long relievers on teams, at least not as far as when it comes to rotation, but this one is kind of an important one. They do have Jordan Montgomery, which I didn't want to ask their owner about him because he may have had really bad things to say, but I mean, this guy 2 years ago was huge in the Rangers World Series run. Came over to the Diamondbacks last year and was just poo-poo and signed very late. He was one of the Scott Boras guys to sign super late. But like, let's say something bad happens there, they've got him right there waiting in the wings. I feel like waiting in the wings probably isn't the best thing to say there because he's got 7 years of service time. But yeah, then the back end of their bullpen, honestly, like almost their entire bullpen is all very good and was a huge part of their their success going to the World Series a couple years ago as well, which pretty much all those guys have been here outside of AJ Puck, who just got traded last year in July. Should be closing some games for him this year.
Yeah, their bullpen's really solid. Jordan Montgomery, we'll see how much of last year's disappointment was because of the Boris holdout thing. He didn't really have a normal offseason, so hopefully he can get back on track. I think he was always projected to be somebody who's a good pitcher. It didn't really pan out, and then all of a sudden it came together for the Rangers. So hopefully he can regain some of that form. They don't really need him to be anything special, at least outside of they have quite a bit of money tied up with him. But they also have Kendall Graveman, who right now is injured with back tightness.
Oh, yeah.
But a solid guy who's been around the block a time or two. So they even have depth in like a reliever realm. So I feel good about this rotation and the full staff, really.
Yeah, I was sitting there clicking around trying to figure out who had the majority of their saves last year, because Justin Martinez, who is also very good, he had the most saves of their team as it's assembled now last year, and I completely forgot that Paul Sewald fell off a cliff at one point last year, but he did end up having 16 of their saves. That's awesome. If it felt rude, I was sitting there trying to figure out who the hell saved games for them last year, but I should have known it was Paul Sewald. They don't have any top 100 prospects in the pitching realm, so it's a good thing that their staff is good.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add for the DBacks?
No, I'm good.
All right, cool. Let's hop into
the Fathers.
San Diego Padres. Slam Diego, if you will. All right. These next two teams have pretty big lines of key departures and key adds, as far as just players to even point out. One team isn't as high of and has high dollar of departures and adds, but the other team is quite a bit. They still have so we're talking Padres here. Key departures. Your boy Jurickson Profar signed a deal with the Braves earlier this offseason. Ha-Seong Kim, which I believe he signed a deal with the Rays. Kyle Higashioka with the Rangers. Donnie Barrels and Donovan Solano and Nick Ahmed. I pointed them out just because they're good bench guys. As far as departures, that's it. But key adds, Jose Iglesias, baby, our boy, Jason Hayward. With this, I think it's hysterical that these three got added to this team this year because I love all three of these guys. Jose Iglesias, Jason Hayward, and Connor Joe. I like Connor Joe specifically just for his name because it's a great name. And he's good too. I'll throw him some bones.
You like how he doesn't look like a Connor or a Joe.
Correct. In all the best ways.
Yes.
But they do have two key prospects, and they're both position players. They've got the number 18th. It's Leo DeVries. Hope I said that right. He's a shortstop, supposed to be up in 2 years. And then Ethan Salas, who's a catcher. He's supposed to be up in 2 years. He's number 33. But yeah, going into their team here, so top to bottom, I do still really like their lineup, although it seems like they're starting to kind of fall off, at least as far as the division as a whole goes. We still have Luis Ariz. There was a lot of rumors that they were going to trade him. Does not appear that they're going to, at least they haven't yet. But Luis Ariz, Tatis, Jackson Merrill, Manny Machado, I would even throw in Cronenworth and Bogarts. Like, that's a solid top six. Bogarts has fallen off a little bit in the past couple of years, but he's still very capable. He's still only 32. Then we got our boy Jose Iglesias, slated in to play second, which is fun. And then Jason Hayward in left and Elias Diaz catching, which I like. Even those bottom three, any of those guys they're more than capable of stepping in and winning you a game. Probably Diaz being the lowest there, but And then on their bench, they've got backup catcher Luis Camposano, my boy Connor Joe, Igor Rosario, and Tyler Wade, which I believe he played a lot for them last year. But no, I really like the first half of their lineup. I don't mind the back half. Their bench is nothing to really write home about, but yeah, I mean, they got some guys that can absolutely swing the bat in this team. They got four guys that have four guys on the starting lineup that have a 120 WRC plus or more, which three of those guys have more than 130. So it's even better. Tatis is one of my favorite players in the league, just because he's just wherever you're going to put him in the field, he's going to flash, and he's just so flashy with the bat too. Like when he pimps a home run, it's top notch pimping.
He's going all in on his personality, by the way. He just signed with Bad Bunnies, the rapper, their agency to
Really?
rep him, by the way, the other day. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we'll
Really?
see some things of commercials and whatnot for him. But yeah, he's kind of playing into he's got a big personality in a good way, I think. But we'll see what happens if that really
I think
is
it's funny
meaningful
because
or
he's
not.
kind of soft spoken when he speaks, but he is not himself.
No, I mean, I like guys, though, who are they're normal humans, and then they step in between the lines and they can express themselves in different ways. It's always fun to watch. He's, for better or for worse, a really, really exciting player. And if he's on the TV, you're locked in watching him.
Yeah. One thing we do have to shit on the Padres for, only Jackson Merrill, who's their only person that has less than 5 years of service time in their starting lineup, he's their only homegrown guy. So a lot of these guys, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure some of these guys still came up in minors with them. Actually, I don't remember Cronenworth ever being on the Rays, if I'm going to be completely honest. But I know Tatis, I knew he was drafted by the White Sox and came over, but yeah, actually, I'm going to completely take back what I just said. Yeah, none of these guys were in their minors, I don't think, ever. So, but Jackson Merrill is the one and only guy there, and that guy is quickly becoming an absolute stud. He's the only guy, like I said, under 5 years of service time in this lineup, and he's sitting there at a solid full year. He had an unbelievable year last year with a 5 WAR, 5.3, projected to be just under 5 this year. And he plays a mean center field as well.
Yeah, their lineup's really good.
Over to you if you've got more to say.
Their lineup's really, really good. I don't really have too much to add on any individual player. I think you pretty well covered it. My question to you is Luis Arraez, known for obviously his hitting ability, but when you look at the underlying numbers, it's not quite as impressive as you would assume. The average is really high, but he never walks. He never shows any signs of power. So for me, I wouldn't want
never
that.
strikes out.
Never strikes out. The ball's always in play. But because of that, I would not be batting him first. He's slow.
But, well, yeah, he's had ankle and foot injuries as well. But no, the only thing I was going to say is that it's kind of like what I was talking about with Jonathan India with the Royals. It's he's constantly going to have high. He's either going to get a hit early in the count or he's going to have a high pitch at bat count. That probably didn't make sense, but he's going to have a high pitch count in every single at bat because of his ability to just say, I don't want that pitch, foul off. I don't want that pitch,
unless he
foul
sees
off.
a pitch that he likes, in which case he can convert that into hit. Well, I see what you're saying. However, hear me out here. And this is thinking a little bit outside the box. I get that. If you were to put Jackson Merrill has power, maybe a little too much power to put in the one hole for a traditional look, but he has more speed, right? If my whole point, I guess, is if you slide Luis Arraez back in the lineup a little bit and get guys on base, that opens up the field even more for him. And so you are strengthening his strength by being able to place the ball here and there and situationally manufacture runs a little bit. Whereas right now they're very much set in to like, you are getting a hit or you're out, and then you hang out and hope that we hit a home run because you don't have the speed to like manufacture anything at that point. Especially like you're right in front of Fernando Tatis. That guy can flat out run. So
Yeah.
nice. Luis Ariz is going to be on first base because he has zero power so often. And then what, like Fernando Tatis just has to like check every time he rounds a base if he can go because Luis Ariz is in front of him. I just think like he can be a very, very good run producer actually with his unique skill set in this lineup if he's in um, like a more unconventional but like middle of the order piece. Especially like you think of 2 outs. Like who do you want hitting with 2 outs more than Luis Ariz with a guy in scoring position? Like put him in those situations, not lead off. I don't think he does much for you lead off. His on base percentage is like good, but not like ridiculously good where he has to be getting the most at bats on your team. I would rather see his at bats be in a more productive situation, and you can hand pick those to a degree. You know it's not going to be lead off, so put him in a spot where like you might be getting a lot of junk pitches because there's runners on base. He's so good at pitch recognition and kind of guiding the ball to like wherever the defense isn't. Let Fernando Tatis hit in front of him, for example, like get the defense moving with hit and runs, hit behind guys if you need to. Like I just think he can be a lot more productive of a player if he's not hitting first. And I know it doesn't really pass the eye test. It would be unconventional, but like I said, I'm thinking out of the box here. I want to see them try it at least. Thoughts?
Yeah. I don't agree. I don't
Good.
hate the concept, but he's got the best average in the league every year. You want him to have the most amount of at bats. So like if he was just like a 270 hitter instead of a 310 hitter every single year, I would say absolutely, yeah, move him down, even if it's like 280 because he's not providing anything else like that. But that extra 3% is huge.
But if he has the highest average and he doesn't walk, that means it's a lot of hits. Like, why don't you put him in a position where you need a hit, right? With 2 outs, like guys on base, that's when you need.
Yeah, but how are you ever going to predict that?
Well, you only have like the best chance of predicting that is in the first like 1 or 2 innings because the avenues for it to fall apart are slimmer. So like if he's hitting,
that's why he's hitting first.
Yeah, what if he hits fourth, right? Worst comes to worst, you go 3 up, 3 down in the first inning. He's a leadoff guy again, right? However, if he comes
but then
up,
you have
there is a
not
runner
as
on.
good hitters.
I disagree because, like we just said, their top 6 is great. Even Jose Iglesias, WRC plus last year of 137. Like they have 6, 7 guys like Hayward, Joe, whoever's playing there on a particular day, Elias Diaz and Jose Iglesias. Like one of them in any situation is going to be a pretty decent hitter. So if you have 7 good guys, like if you put Luis Ariz fourth, he's either going to lead off the second inning, in which case you're back in the same exact situation that you were anyways if he was leading off, or you guarantee that there's a runner on base. And if there's a runner on base, the defense is playing out of position. There's likely 1 or 2 outs, just playing the percentages there. Like you need a hit in those situations. And he would be the number 1 person in the league who I would want up at the plate at that point.
I don't disagree. Let's say you put him fourth. Are you sliding Tatis, Merrill, Machado up and leaving everybody else the same? Or are you sliding somebody else at leadoff?
So I didn't get that far down in my thought process. The thing is, like Merrill and Tatis, like there's no bad place to put them in the lineup outside of 7, 8, 9. Like they can both lead off. I think they probably both have a little too much power to put up there. But like, can you swap Luis Ariz and Jay Cronenworth? Why not? Like their on base percentages aren't like that much different. But then you're increasing the chance of Luis Ariz to be in a run producing situation where you need a hit. I think there's a couple
I
different options that they could go with if they went down that route. I don't expect them to go down that route. It's more of just a fun conversation to have because it's something that I would be tempted if I was manager for a day to run out there and see what the
yeah.
results are.
No, and I do think that is fun. Uh, I think the way I see it is that I legitimately think it's because of the amount of pitches this guy sees. Like it's imagine imagine you're going to start a game. This is your first batter, and the first batter just sits there and just fouls 6 straight off in your face, and then just gets a little bloop single in the outfield. You're pissed off. You're stewing, and then there's no outs. I now have to face Fernando Tatis, Jackson Merrill, and Manny Machado. I sure hope I don't give up a home run when I'm already stewing my face off. Like
Stewing my face off.
you're like probably you're probably pissed off. You're probably slightly tired just because you're like, all right, I need to get this guy out, but I just can't seem to do it. Because like with his, I mean, he only struck out 4.3% last year. Like that's crazy low.
Yeah.
So yes,
what's his walk
what's
percentage?
funny is that his walk percentage is only 3.6. Yes, he's like one of the worst as far as walk rates go, but also one of the best as far as K rates go. But he's a weird guy too. It's kind of like a Schwarber thing where it's their numbers are funky, their numbers are unique. You need to find a place for them, and it seems like every time somebody has a unique, funky numbers, they get slotted into leadoff.
I agree. I mean, he's kind of the anti, or I would like him as the anti Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, which is funny because they're both leadoff hitters, even though Schwarber's probably hitting second this year.
All right.
All right. Let's move on to the pitching.
By the way, so here's your alternative. Last year, pitches per at bat ranking. Jake Cronenworth, number 10. Right?
All right.
This article that I just pulled up.
At?
Well, that's what I was going to say. This article that I just pulled up only has the top 25. Luis Arise is not there.
All right.
So it's kind of your point.
Like you've got a game plan coming into this game to get Luis Arise out, and you don't, and you're just pissed off at that point.
Well, yeah, maybe it's a chestnut checkers thing where you are trying to get into the psyche of the other pitcher. I tend to think that they're an MLB player. One little slap hit single the other way isn't going to end their day.
Well, it might to the Rockies rotation.
True.
The reason I was laughing, by the way, you said chestnut checkers, and I could have sworn you said chestnut checkers. I was like, that's not how that phrase is said, but you said it correct. All right, moving on to the pitching. That was a good discussion, though. That did go long, but that was a good discussion. So their main key departure is losing Tanner Scott. Guy is one of the best in the biz as far as relievers go. Guy's just unbelievable. And unfortunately, he went to the worst place that they would expect him to go, which is the team we're talking about next. But then key adds, they did add in Nick Pivetta and Kyle Hart. I don't know a whole lot about Kyle Hart, but he's the only lefty in their starting rotation here. Was a 19th rounder for Boston a couple years ago. Only 128 service time days. Just came back over to the States from Korea. Like because I just kind of learned of him right before we started to do this, I'm going to take a little bit deeper of a dive in on him and figure out if he's actually any good or if they just don't have any other good pieces to fit in. So they do obviously have Joe Musgrove, who got Tommy John in October of last year. So that's probably the only reason he's in there. But the rest of their rotation is solid.
Yeah.
You got Dylan Cease.
Go ahead.
You look like you're about to say something.
Yeah.
All right. Dylan Cease is your ace. Michael King, who basically acted as an ace last year. Yu Darvish third, Nick Pivetta fourth, which Nick Pivetta being fourth is crazy to me. Like that's a solid top four. If they can find their way into the playoffs, they're going to be an absolute demon to get out like they were last year. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, Dylan Cease, they've like even this deep into spring training are still like maybe we're going to trade him for some reason. I think they need him, especially this year. Kyle Hart, kind of the great unknown, 19th round pick. You mentioned the lack of MLB experience, but coming back from the KBO, we're starting to get a little bit of a track record that a lot of guys can go to the KBO, figure something out, and then return to the MLB and be very, very good players. So excited for him to have the opportunity. But yeah, the other four guys, Cease, King, Darvish, and Pivetta, are insanely good. Um, I think this is still a really, really good team, and they are certainly a big part of it.
Yeah, it's just funny how like the before we get into bullpen, which is good and not good at the same time, but it's funny how it feels like the like sentiment about this team this year is that they just are sucks. They're not the Dodgers. Like they're falling off. They didn't try, but it's like they still have a really fucking good team.
Yeah, don't sleep on them at all.
like their lineup's awesome. Their rotation is awesome. Their back four are all ranked within the top 100, with Robert Suarez and Jason Adam being their main back two, which those two guys are unbelievable. And then like their top four guys, the longer four guys, whatever, they're also ranked pretty high for that position. But yeah, I mean this is a great team. I just think it's funny how much I've been like led to believe that this team's going to suck this year, but that they're still just going to be good, and they're like I will love to still see them play the Dodgers and keep to see that bad blood forming. Obviously, we don't want that, but it's very exciting to watch. Do you have anything else to add before we move on to Dodgers?
I'm good.
All right, now let's go into your 2024 World Series champions, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Key departures. Honestly, their biggest one is Gavin Lux. Just kidding. Which, honest, I mean, he is kind of their biggest one. But Jack Flaherty, they only had for half the season last year. Oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to the pitchers. Gavin Lux is really their only main bat that left. Pretty much everybody else that was a free agent came back, which I guess that's really just Teoscar Hernandez and Kike Hernandez. But yeah, so they lost Gavin Lux in a trade to the Reds. It was so baffled right there. But key adds, they stole Michael Conforto away from the Giants. They added Hyesung Kim as a KBO free agent who'll be manning second base every day, it seems like. Maybe he's in a little split there with Kike, which is once they got him, it seemed all but done that Gavin Lux was getting traded. Then that's it as far as the ads for the hitters. This is another not tipped cap team because their only homegrown talent is Will Smith and Hyesung Kim, who hasn't even played a single pitch for them yet. But this lineup, obviously, top to bottom, is just quite possibly the greatest ever created. You got Shohei at DH, Mookie at short, which that's probably one of the more interesting outside of like just how good this team is. It's one of the more interesting like storylines coming into this is their infield defense, just because Mookie did not grade very well at shortstop anytime he's ever played it.
They don't care about defense.
No, which is funny though, because in the World Series, that's what they claimed they used to beat the Yankees. Then you got Freddie Freeman at first, Teoscar Hernandez in right, Max Muncy at third, Will Smith catching, arguably one of my favorite catchers. Michael Conforto in left, Tommy Edman in center, who came out of nowhere for them last year. So much so that they extended him. Then Hyesung Kim At second, with their bench even actually being pretty above average as well, Austin Barnes, backup catcher, Miguel Rojas, Chris Taylor, who feels like he's 48 at this point, and then Kike Hernandez. There was one thing I wanted to make sure I pointed out before we did anything else, was that not a single person outside of Haesung Kim has options on this team. every single player has at least 5 years and 50 days of service time outside of obviously Haesung Kim. So it's a fun one because I feel like they're just the modern day Yankees now, and I feel like that hasn't quite caught on as the sentiment yet because it's kind of just now like really starting with Shohei's crazy deal and all the other crazy deals that they've signed. But yeah, I'll hand it over to you to continue on bats.
Yeah, a lot of returning pieces here. I think a huge piece is that re-signing actually of Tommy Edman. So the last couple of years they've had Chris Taylor, who put in a couple good years for them and then has since taken a step back. But he's kind of the ultimate utility guy, and he absolutely tore it up once he was healthy and joined the team last year. So not sure what they saw in the scouting report because Tommy Edman was always just a good utility player, and he turned into honestly like one of the better players in the league just from his limited time in LA. So I think that's huge. Obviously, the last thing this team needed is any more offensive depth, but they got it in him. So embarrassment of riches for sure. The one piece I want to talk about here, just because it's trending right now, is Shohei being a two-way player. So I don't know if you saw Travis Hunter come out, the football player.
Oh, Jesus.
And
We're
say,
talking about this?
Yeah, hey, it's hot. It's a hot topic right now. But Travis Hunter came out and pretty much said that football, it's harder to be a two-way player. So what are
your
thoughts?
Dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So conditioning-wise, absolutely. Like playing both ways in football is probably the conditioning hardest thing you could probably do in major sports, at least the big four. Not including soccer. I mean, soccer, yeah, you sprint back and forth all the time. But like playing both sides of the ball, sprinting, and then using all of your might to tackle somebody or break a tackle on somebody is like insanely difficult. I'll potentially side with him on that aspect of it. But no, it's being a wide receiver isn't anywhere near as hard as being one of the best pitchers in the entire league or being one of the best hitters in the entire league. Like it's an insanely skill-based sport that you have to just have like the greatest just innate ability to play the game of baseball to do this both ways. Because it's such a mentally tasking sport that like you don't have the mental capacity to try to figure out one or the other while you're still trying to figure out, because you never have hitting figured out. You never have pitching figured out. You're just really good and you have it more figured out than other people, than the opposite side. Like I just think it's very dumb. I don't know if you have anything else to add on that, but
like, I do, which is like, I have some thoughts on the matter, which is why I asked the question. But here's why I think Travis Hunter is off his rocker. One, like
I'm glad we at least
played. You haven't played a down in the NFL. Shohei Ohtani is at the highest league. Like you can't, well, not that you can't, but you don't typically go from like college ball to the pros. Like there's a even larger step up from one level to another in MLB. Shohei's an all-star caliber player on the mound, and he's a Hall of Fame caliber player at the plate. Like he is the top of the top of the top at both positions in the game today. On top of that, the skill sets are entirely different. Travis Hunter's coming from a sport where they have two roster spots taken up by kickers. Kicking and punting is very specialized, right? Like baseball is an entirely different animal. Not only that, like the skill set between a cornerback and a wide receiver, what do you have to know? Right? You have to understand defensive, like secondary coverages, and you have to understand route running, right? Both of those translate regardless what side of the ball you're on. Tackling, how many players in football play on special teams and can go make tackles? a ton, regardless of the position that they
Yeah.
play. Like, you have wide receivers out there who are capable of making tackles. Like, it's all
You
the
literally
same
just
skill
sprint
set.
into somebody.
The big difference is like having run after catch ability and catching ability, in which case, like, a lot of DBs can't catch, and they were wide receivers. It's like it's not the same position, but it's a very close cousin of the same position. What Shohei Ohtani is doing is not even remotely close to the same skill set, and he's absolutely mastered both of them at the highest level.
Yeah.
End range.
No, it's just a dumb take.
Terrible.
Just hit end range.
Like, and for a guy who hasn't played in the NFL, like, go figure it out first and see if you're any good first before you start running your mouth.
Yeah, if he was playing both ways every play in the NFL, I'd say I would take that conversation way more seriously. But to your point, you haven't even hit the highest level. Like, just play football on your bad Colorado team and get drafted, make your money, try to play two ways, realize you can't, or that no coach will let you because they need you healthy and need you well rested on whatever side of the ball they want you on. Like that's the crazy thing too. It's Shohei will pitch every 5 days, but then still hit every single day and just hit bombs every single day. And he's fast. He steals bases. Like, he does literally everything.
Yes,
it's crazy.
Except play the field.
Yes,
and that's more health related than anything.
He played outfield at one point, right?
Yeah,
like in a very small quantity. Yeah.
I think it's mostly because didn't they still have Albert Pujols? I'm pretty sure like they needed Albert to be pitching at that point. So, all right. I don't have anything else on the hitter side of the ball.
No, yeah, it's just fantastic at every single position. Like, even if Hyun Kim sucks, it's okay.
Yeah,
8 or 9 hitters are great. Cool.
Also, yeah, prospects.
Like, even and you also
like,
have
injuries aren't even a
concern. Chris Taylor that can play, who have been doing that. Like,
do you mind if I segue us into the pitchers?
Have at it, brother.
Just because of the comment I just made, like, injuries don't really matter to them. Like, the depth of this organization is absolutely insane. They're pitching right now. They have 10 guys hurt. 10 guys. They have an entire starting rotation that would be up there probably for a pretty mediocre starting rotation across the league with just their hurt guys. And then they have an additional 5 guys on in a reliever role who are also hurt. So they have
some of those guys
everything.
Could be starters.
Right. They have everything.
I want to know, maybe this is a Jake Mosel Padres situation. Why are they having so many TJs?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what happens when you just get guys who throw 103 and try to teach them to throw 105.
Kershaw's old, always hurt, but like, they've got 3 of their starters listed having Tommy John all within 3 months of each other. And then Gavin Stone, who had shoulder surgery in October. Like, what are we doing to our pitchers? You know?
Breaking
and
even
the relievers, you got shoulder surgery, shoulder discomfort, forearm inflammation, rotator cuff PRP injection. Like,
they're here
what are we doing?
They're here to win World Series, right? They're not here to make sure these guys have long careers. Like, they are throwing them out there and asking their bodies to do the most that they possibly can. Plus, they play a lot of extra innings just from postseason ball and stuff. Sure, that has a little bit to do with it. But even every guy in this team, I think they'd sign up for the World Series and have an arm that might fall off at any moment after the fact. It's just like maybe it's a priority thing. I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor, but yeah, there's definitely something fishy going on in how they're running this pitching staff, because there are a ton of injuries.
Yeah. I mean, it could also just be that they're like, we're so deep that if you even feel something bad, it's like, just go get healthy.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's like, we don't need you hurting yourself more because we have a guy that's just as good right behind you. So keeping along with our format, key departures. So they did have 3 in the pitching realm. So Jack Flaherty, like I pointed out earlier, Yeah, or I started to point out earlier, he is no longer there, but they just traded for him last year. He's back with the Tigers, the team that they traded him from. Joe Kelly is still a free agent, but he's gone. And then Walker Buehler is currently on the Red Sox. He adds stole Blake Snell from the Giants. So they stole a player from both sides of the ball from the Giants. They added Roki Sasaki, who is technically considered the number one prospect in the league right now. Added two just absolute stud back end guys in Kirby Yates and Tanner Scott, who will be their final two guys. Well, they still have Blake Trinan and Alex Vesia right in front of them, who those two are unbelievable as well. So it's like there's not even a single weakness in this team. Like, I don't know what the weakness is. Maybe it's just that they get hurt so often.
There is no weakness.
But like their rotation, you got Yamamoto, Snell, Glass now, Roki Sasaki, and Tony Gonsolin. And plus the 10 other guys that we listed on the injured list earlier. Like, they are stacked. So most of those guys, like the Tommy John guys, probably won't be back for the majority of this year. Maybe Emmett Sheehan, because he had his in May. Like, he may come into the back of the...
There's just no need.
Yeah. But then, like, you also have Dustin May as your long reliever, which that guy has some filthy stuff. Like, it's just crazy to me. And they even have 4 lefty relievers in their pen too, so it's like they're suited well for that situation as well. Which two of the 3 guys we didn't mention in the bullpen are in their top 30 prospect ranks in their entire organization. So it's like, even though their names we don't necessarily know, it's like, well, they're probably going to be studs because they're prospects. Speaking of prospects, I didn't mention the hitter one, so I'll mention this first real quick. So they have number 30 in Dalton Rushing, who's a catcher outfielder. He's supposed to come up this year at some point, or his expected MLB ETA is this year. He may get traded for other prospects since they don't need new prospects that are ready right now. Number 40 in Josu DePaula. He's an outfielder. He's up in 2 years. Alex Freeland, who's a shortstop, who's supposed to come up this year. And then Zahir Hope, who is an outfielder, who's supposed to come up in 2 years, which I've randomly watched a couple Dodger spring training games so far this year. That guy looks like he could be a problem if he can figure it out and make it up to a big league club. But then as far as prospects for pitching, obviously Roki Sasaki at number 1, and a guy named Jackson Ferris, who's number 70. He's supposed to be up in next year. He's a left-handed pitcher. So that's all I got for prospects.
I'll tell you right now, I'm buying everything I'm seeing on Roki Sasaki. Like, he could step in here and be the best pitcher on their team, and I wouldn't be too surprised. Like, after watching him in the spring, he throws absolute gas. It looks very difficult to pick up, and his splitter, like, it splits faster than my parents. It's 40 inches of break. It's 40 inches of break, Matt. 40 inches. Like, he's throwing 4-seamers 100 plus at the letters, and then a splitter that bounces before the plate, and like, people look stupid. And I don't think that's not something that you just catch on. Like, it's a plus pitch. It is insane.
I'm trying to move on from that, but I just can't. No, yes, everything I've seen of him looks fantastic. Outside of the absolute bomb that he gave up to Kyle Teal on like a back practice field when he was just messing around pitching to the White Sox. But no, all jokes aside, it's crazy. Which, by the way, the options thing that I was talking about with hitters, kind of the same exact thing with the pitchers. 2 of their starters, which Roki Sasaki only has 3 because he literally just got signed. Tony Gonsolin still has 1, and then they've got three relievers that have options left, and everybody else doesn't. Which would be an interesting thing. Like, if somebody on their team starts sucking, but like, they're still a good team, it's like I would assume you have to just let them try to get through it, because you can't just like send a guy down if they don't have options. Like, you have to either cut them or try to DFA him, but somebody's just going to claim him. Like somebody would,
Yeah.
I feel like somebody would claim Chris Taylor in a heartbeat.
Yes.
If they tried to DFA him to bring up somebody.
They have so much depth though. Like you can hide a guy at the major league level in this roster.
Yeah.
Like
it's
you put a guy out
like
there
the
a couple times, like in a low leverage spot, hope that he figures it out. It might take a month. But yeah, I don't think you are making any like moves at the MLB level if you're them, barring
No,
anything
really.
crazy.
Yeah. But like you'd hate to be the guys that aren't Roki or Hai-Sung Kim that do have options. Because should that situation arise, you're the guy going down.
Right.
Looking at you, Ben Kasparius. He still has 3 options. Like I would imagine if they have to option somebody, he's going to be number 1. And he's a middle reliever. Like, whatever. All right. I can't stop burping. But, yeah, that's Talking Dodgers. I know every other podcast loves to just completely glaze on them. But you know what? We're going to try to be good and not just only talk about the Dodgers or the Orioles or the Yankees. We're going to, being that we both live in the great city of Cincinnati, we appreciate the small market teams. You know, we're going to try to get the entire league exposure, even if it's the White Sox. We're still going to make sure that we talk about them every now and then to at least keep some fans happy. You know,
Love it.
All right, let's get into the predictions. Do you want us to go first or me?
I'll go because mine are easy. I don't have any like hot takes here. I think it goes in the exact same order as last year. I think all teams should be a little bit better than they were last year. I don't think that really will show in the record. But I think when it's all said and done, I expect the NL West to be the exact same order last year. So starting off with the Dodgers, obviously they're World Series contenders and favorites. Then Padres, Diamondbacks, Giants, and Rockies.
Okay. I basically have the same exact order, which, by the way, I saw that the Dodgers, I believe, are minus 10,000 just to make the playoffs, which I thought was crazy.
Don't bet that.
That's no, please don't. But Dodgers, obviously, number 1. The only way they don't finish number 1 is if just absolute catastrophe happens, which we're not hoping for, but that's the only way that they're not winning this division, I think. So just to be contrarian, I'm going to put DBacks at number 2 and Padres at 3, but I think they're going to basically have the same record and DBacks are going to win off like a head-to-head type thing.
I like it.
But then I think Giants are clearly 4, but they're still good. And I don't hate the Rockies. They're just in this division, so their record's going to be dog shit, and they'll probably end up having the worst record in the NL, even though I don't think they'll go down as the worst team in the NL. I think that should be the Marlins.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, but they're probably going to have a significantly worse record just because 52 of their games are played in the division, and they have to play these 4 teams that we just talked about. So that's an entire almost third of your season. So, yeah, so Dodgers, you had Padres, I had D-backs. You had D-backs, I had Padres, Giants, Rockies. Got anything else to add?
No, sounds good to me. One more division to go. Looking forward to it. It's our favorite division. Both of our teams are in it.
Actually, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very excited for the NL Central. But actually, I'll save this question for the end of the NL Central, and I'll ask it, but don't answer it until the next episode. I was going to ask how many wild card teams are in this division. But that should be a fun one to look at after we get through the Central because there's 3 really good teams in the East. There's 3, potentially 4 really good teams in the East, 3 potentially 4 really good teams in the West. And then
Central,
I feel like there's
TBD.
a lot of unknowns in the Central.
Oh,
yeah.
Dude,
a lot of unknowns in the Central, but like, yeah. I mean, there's some talent in the Central that could make some noise, especially with, like we were talking about, you play a third of your season against your own division. Like, we're not sitting here trying to tout up teams that aren't as good as other teams, but divisions exist. The schedule exists. The teams don't pick the schedule. They don't pick how you make the playoffs. You just win enough and you're in.
Yeah.
So it should be fun. Like I could
look forward to it.
I could see somebody in this. I could see a team in the Central We'll name it next week, but potentially squeaking in. That doesn't win the division.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, wink, wink. All right. Anything else? I believe you already said no, but
we're on
I'll
TikTok.
ask again. Yes. What is it again? It's ducksonthepod.baseball.
That's correct.
Yes, and remember, it's Ducks on the Pod, not Pond. So no N. I'm sure if you do type in Pond, you can probably still find it. But there's yeah. So we are on all social media. We're on TikTok. We're on Twitter. We are on Instagram. We're going to try to get way more consistent with posting to those and getting interaction, because that'll be the number one place to hear from you guys. I did hear that there were some comments on Spotify, but I didn't get any notifications on that. So I apologize if you're listening to this and we didn't respond to you. We'll get to it as soon as we can. But I got nothing else. I'm excited to talk to you about the Central. That probably is going to end up being a 2-hour special, just because it's the division we know and love. And we probably know there's 60th man on the roster. So, all right, if you've got nothing else, I've got nothing else. That was talking the West. Again, next week is the Central. That should be it. See you, Pod Quackers, whatever you guys are called. Follow us on social media, like and subscribe, all that jazz. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.